Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the New Horizon. The stars outside the window looked the same as always, but everything had changed. A message had arrived that morning, and it was unlike anything Earth had ever received. Message came from space, not from another human colony or a trading post, but from aliens. Real aliens who had been watching Earth for years. They called themselves the Galactic Council, and they had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. Jake read the message again on his tablet. The words were simple, but their meaning was huge. The Council wanted to meet with humans. They wanted to give humanity a seat at their table. No species had ever been invited to join the Council in the first 1,000 years of their existence. "Captain, are you sure about this?" asked Dr. Lisa Parker. She was the ship's expert on alien life. Her job was to study the strange creatures they met in space. "This feels too good to be true," Jake nodded. He had been thinking the same thing. The Council ruled 12 different alien races. Each race was older than humanity by millions of years. They had technology that humans could barely understand. Why would they want to include Earth in their group? The message came through Ambassador Veltar, Jake said. "He's been honest with us before." Veltar was from a race called the Zephyrians. They looked like tall, thin humans made of pale light. The Zephyrians had been the first aliens to contact Earth 5 years ago. They had been kind to humans and had taught them how to build better spaceships. Lisa pulled up a file on her computer. "I've been reading about the Council. Every species that joins has to pass some kind of test. The message doesn't say what the test is." Jake walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Earth's government had chosen him for this mission because he was good at talking to different kinds of people. He had grown up in a small town where his mother was a teacher and his father fixed machines. He had learned that most problems could be solved if people just talked to each other. But this was different. This wasn't about talking to people from different countries or cultures. This was about talking to beings from different worlds, different ways of thinking, different ways of existing. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Commander Amy Rogers from her station. "We're getting reports from the outer colonies. Several alien ships have been spotted near our mining operations." Jake frowned. The timing was strange. Humans had just started mining asteroids in the outer part of their solar system. The work was dangerous and difficult, but the minerals they found were valuable. Earth needed those resources to build more spaceships and space stations. "What kind of ships?" Jake asked. "Unknown design," Amy replied. "They're not doing anything threatening. They're just watching." Dr. Kevin Walsh, the ship's language expert, looked up from his desk. "Captain, I've been studying the Council's message. The language is very formal, very old. But there's something else. The way they wrote it suggests they're not just inviting you. They're testing us." Jake felt a chill run down his back. "Testing us how?" "I'm not sure," Kevin said. "But the word they used for invitation can also mean challenge in several galactic languages." The bridge fell quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. The Council wasn't just offering friendship. They were evaluating humanity, judging whether humans deserved to join their group. Jake made his decision. "Amy, set course for the Council station. We leave in 2 hours." "Sir," Lisa said, "we don't know what we're walking into. This could be dangerous." "Everything worth doing is dangerous," Jake replied. "But this is bigger than just Earth. If we don't go, we'll never know what we could have become." The next few hours were busy. Jake's team prepared for the journey. They packed diplomatic gifts, cultural information about Earth, and examples of human technology. They also prepared for the possibility that this was a trap. Amy checked the ship's weapons systems. The New Horizon wasn't a warship, but it could defend itself if needed. She also planned escape routes in case things went wrong. Kevin loaded his computers with every language database Earth had collected. He studied the few conversations humans had recorded with alien species. He tried to understand how different races thought and communicated. Lisa prepared medical supplies and biological information. She didn't know what kinds of beings they would meet, but she wanted to be ready for anything. As the New Horizon prepared to leave Earth's solar system, Jake received a final message from Earth's government. The president wished him luck and reminded him that he represented all of humanity. No pressure, Jake said to himself with a smile. The journey to the council station would take 3 weeks. The ship would travel through hyperspace, a method of fast travel that the Zephyrians had taught humans. During hyperspace travel, the ship existed in a different dimension where distances were much shorter. As the New Horizon entered hyperspace, Jake felt the familiar sensation of reality bending around him. The stars outside disappeared, replaced by swirling colors and shapes that hurt to look at directly. "Well, team," Jake said to his crew, "we're committed now. Whatever happens next, we face it together." Amy nodded. "Just like always, sir." Lisa was already reviewing alien biology files. "I just hope we're ready for whatever they throw at us." Kevin was practicing alien greetings. "The important thing is to show respect while maintaining our dignity." Jake smiled. His team was nervous, but they were ready. They had trained for this moment, even if they hadn't known it was coming. The New Horizon flew through hyperspace toward an unknown future. Behind them, Earth continued its daily life, unaware that their representatives were heading toward meeting that would change the course of human history. Jake wondered what his father would think of this moment. The man who had spent his life fixing broken machines was about to have a son who might help fix the relationship between Earth and the galaxy. 3 weeks, Jake said quietly. 3 weeks to prepare for the most important conversation in human history. The ship hummed around them as they traveled toward their destiny. The council station appeared on the New Horizon screens like something from a dream. It was built inside a hollow asteroid the size of Earth's moon. The surface was covered with lights and docking bays and structures that seemed to grow and change as Jake watched. "I've never seen anything like it," Amy whispered. Jake had to agree. The station looked alive. Parts of it moved and shifted like breathing. Other sections seemed to be made of pure energy, held in place by invisible forces. "Captain," Kevin said, "I'm getting communication requests in 47 different languages. The station's computer is trying to find the best way to talk to." "US, let it," Jake replied. "We're here to communicate." The docking process took 2 hours. The station had to create a special docking bay that could support human life. Jake watched through the ship's cameras as robotic arms built an entire section of the station just for them. "They're either very welcoming or very cautious," Lisa observed. "Maybe both," Jake said. When the docking was complete, Jake and his team prepared to leave the ship. They wore their best diplomatic uniforms and carried translation devices that Kevin had programmed with every alien language they knew. The airlock opened, and they stepped into the station. The first thing Jake noticed was the air. It smelled like flowers and metal, and something else he couldn't identify. The second thing he noticed was the noise. Thousands of different sounds filled the corridor, from mechanical humming to what sounded like singing. "Stay close," Jake told his team. "And remember, we're representing all of humanity." They walked through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were transparent in some places, showing the vast interior of the station. Jake could see beings flying through the air, others walking on walls, and some that seemed to exist as pure light. "Captain," Amy said quietly, "I count at least 50 different species just in this section." Jake nodded. The station was like a city that housed the entire galaxy. Every few steps, they passed beings that looked completely different from anything on Earth. Some were tall and thin, others short and wide. Some had fur, others had scales, and a few seemed to be made of living rock. Most of the aliens ignored the humans, but Jake noticed that some stopped to stare. He wondered what they thought of these strange new creatures from a small planet on the edge of the galaxy. A guide met them at the entrance to the council chamber. It was a floating sphere of blue light that spoke in a voice like singing wind. "Welcome, humans," the guide said. "I am Harmony. I will escort you to the council chamber." "Thank you," Jake replied. "We're honored to be here." The guide led them through more corridors, each one more amazing than the last. Jake saw gardens were alien. Plants grew in patterns that seemed to spell out words in languages he didn't recognize. He saw workshops where beings worked with tools that bent space and time. "The council chamber is prepared for your arrival," Harmony said. "Each member exists in their own environmental bubble, but the center space is shared by all." They entered a massive dome-shaped room. In the center was a circle of 13 seats, each one surrounded by a shimmering barrier. 12 of the seats were occupied by the strangest beings Jake had ever seen. One looked like a mountain of living coral. Another was a column of swirling gas with eyes that glowed like stars. A third appeared to be made of liquid metal that constantly changed shape. The 13th seat was clearly built for humans. It was the right size and shape, with an atmosphere bubble that would let them breathe. "Your seat awaits," Harmony said. Jake walked to the center of the chamber with Amy and Kevin following. As they approached the human seat, the entire room fell silent. The silence was complete and absolute. Jake could hear his own heartbeat and the soft hum of the translation device. 12 pairs of eyes, some visible and others sensed rather than seen, focused on the humans. Jake sat down in the chair. The atmosphere bubble activated, and he felt the familiar sensation of breathing Earth air. Amy and Kevin took positions behind him as his advisors. The silence continued for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Jake realized this was a test in itself. The council was waiting to see what the humans would do. Finally, the being that looked like living coral spoke. Its voice was deep and slow, like the sound of ancient mountains. "I am Council Prime Zexhi," it said. "I have existed for 12 million years. I have seen the birth and death of stars. I have watched civilizations rise and fall like waves on an ocean." Jake listened carefully. He could hear the weight of ages in the being's voice. "Human representative," Zexhi continued, "your species has been observed for some time. You have been catalogued, studied, and discussed. Your rapid expansion through space, your unusual adaptability, your strange ability to unite despite your differences, all of these things mark you as remarkable." Other council members began to speak. Each one was older than human civilization. Each one had knowledge that spanned millions of years. "You build when others destroy," said one that looked like a living crystal. "You explore when others hide. You cooperate when others compete. Your species learns quickly," added another that appeared to be made of controlled lightning. Too quickly, perhaps. Jake felt the weight of their attention. These beings had ruled the galaxy since before humans had discovered fire. They had seen countless species rise and fall. What did they see when they looked at humanity? "We have watched your people spread across your solar system," Zexhi said. "We have observed your mining operations, your colonies, your trade routes. You move with purpose and speed that concerns us." The word "concerns" hung in the air like a threat. "Your species does not follow the patterns we have observed in others," continued the crystal being. "Most species expand slowly, cautiously. They establish territories and defend them. They compete for resources and fight for dominance. But humans," said the lightning being, "humans share. You give technology to species that could become your enemies. You form alliances with beings you barely understand. You take impossible risks for the benefit of others. Jake realized they were building toward something. This wasn't just an observation. It was an accusation. Council Prime, Jake said, we came here in good faith. We accepted your invitation because we believe in cooperation and mutual understanding. Yes, Zexai replied. And that is precisely what concerns us. The silence returned, but this time it felt different. It felt dangerous. Amy shifted behind Jake, and he knew she was thinking the same thing he was. This wasn't a welcome meeting. This was an interrogation. Your species, Zexai continued, possesses qualities that could disrupt the balance we have maintained for millions of years. The question we must answer is simple. Are you here to join our order or to destroy it? Jake looked around the chamber at the 12 ancient beings. Each one was more powerful than anything on Earth. Each one had survived for millions of years by being careful, by maintaining the status quo, by never taking unnecessary risks. And here were the humans, a species barely 2 centuries into space. Travel, offering to shake up everything they had built. We're here to learn, Jake said carefully, and to contribute whatever we can to the greater good of the galaxy. The greater good, repeated the crystal being. An interesting concept. Most species define the greater good as their own survival and prosperity. Humans, said the lightning being, seem to define it as everyone's survival and prosperity. Jake smiled. Is that a problem? The silence that followed was the deepest yet. Jake realized he had just asked a question that went to the heart of everything the council represented. The room remained silent, but Jake could feel the tension building. Whatever came next would determine not just humanity's place in the galaxy, but the future of every species represented in this chamber. The council sessions continued for 3 days. Each day brought new questions, new challenges, and new revelations about how the galaxy really worked. Jake began to understand that the council wasn't just a government. It was a carefully designed system to keep things exactly as they were. On the 3rd day, something changed. Jake was returning from a break when he was approached by one of the council members outside the chamber. It was Tisara, the being made of pure energy contained in a crystal shell. Human Jake, Tisara said, I wish to speak with you privately. Jake looked around. Amy and Kevin were nearby, but Tisara's energy field created a barrier that blocked sound. Of course, Jake replied. What I am about to tell you will anger the other council members, Tisara said. But I have lived for 8 million years, and I have never seen anything like your species. Jake waited. He had learned that the ancient beings liked to take their time with important conversations. The council did not invite you here to join. U.S., Tisara continued. We invited you here to test you, to find your weakness, to discover how to control you. Jake felt his heart sink. Control us? Every species in the galaxy has a breaking point, Tisara explained. A moment when they choose their own survival over everything else. The council has spent millions of years learning these breaking points, the energy being pulsed with what might have been emotion. We use this knowledge to keep the galaxy stable. Each species stays in their assigned role. They expand only as much as we allow. They develop only the technology we approve. They interact with other species only under our supervision. That's not cooperation, Jake said. That's tyranny. It is order, Tisara replied, and it has prevented galactic wars for millions of years. Jake thought about this. Peace was good, but peace built on control and fear wasn't really peace at all. What kind of test are you planning? Jake asked. Tomorrow we will present you with a scenario, Tisara said. A crisis that requires you to make an impossible choice. We will force you to choose between saving different groups of people. We expect you to break down, to show us that humans, like all species, will sacrifice others to save themselves. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. And if we don't break? Then we will know you are too dangerous to be allowed to continue as you are, Tessara said. Your species will be confined to your current territory and forbidden from expanding further. Why? Are you telling me this? Jake asked, the energy being pulsed again. Because in 8 million years, I have become tired of the same patterns repeating over and over. Your species does something I have not seen before. You refuse to accept that some problems cannot be solved. Jake walked back to his quarters. On the station with his mind racing, he found Amy and Kevin waiting for him. Sir, Amy said, something's wrong. I've been monitoring communications, and there's a lot of activity among the council members. They're planning something. I know, Jake said. He told them everything Tessara had revealed. Kevin leaned back in his chair. So tomorrow, they're going to try to break us. They're going to try, Jake agreed, but we're not going to let them. What do you mean? Amy asked. Jake smiled. I mean, we're going to do what humans do best. We're going to find a solution they never thought of. The next morning, the council chamber was full of tension. Jake could feel the expectations of the 12 ancient beings as he took his seat. Today, they would finally see proof that humans were just like every other species in the galaxy. Council. Prime Zexhai activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed a star system with 5 planets, each one inhabited by a different species. Human representative, Zexhai said, observe this system. A star is dying. In 6 months, it will expand and destroy all 5 planets. Millions of beings will die. Jake studied the display. The planets were clearly marked with population numbers and species information. We have the technology to save the inhabitants of one planet, Zexhai continued. Only one. You must choose which species deserves to live. The other council members leaned forward. This was the moment they had been waiting for. Jake looked at the display for a long time. Amy and Kevin whispered behind him, but he held up a hand for silence. Council Prime, Jake said finally, I reject the premise of your test. What do you mean? Zexhai asked. I mean, I refuse to choose which species lives and which dies, Jake replied. Instead, I propose we save them all. The chamber erupted in noise. Some council members laughed. Others seemed angry. A few appeared confused. Impossible, said the crystal being. The logistics alone would require resources we do not possess. The time frame is too short, added the lightning being. Even if we had the ships, we could never evacuate 5 planets in 6 months. Jake stood up. Amy, show them the display. Amy activated her tablet, and a new holographic image appeared next to the council's display. It showed a detailed evacuation plan. 3 weeks ago, Jake said, human explorers discovered a cluster of uninhabited systems about 50 light years from here. 12 planets, all suitable for life. We've been keeping the information secret because we wanted to do proper surveys first. He gestured to the display. But if we shared this information with the galaxy, and if every species contributed ships and resources, we could evacuate all 5 planets and resettle the populations in the new systems. The species would have to live near each other, Kevin added. They would have to learn to cooperate instead of competing. It would require unprecedented cooperation, Amy said. But it's possible. The council chamber fell silent again. But this time, the silence felt different. It felt stunned. You would give up your discovery? Asked the crystal being. You would share systems that could belong to humanity alone? Of course, Jake replied. What good is empty space if it can't be used to save lives? Zexhai's massive form shifted. This is not how the test works. You are supposed to choose. I just did choose, Jake said. I chose to save everyone. But the cost, protested the lightning being. The resources required, the coordination needed, the risk of failure. It would be easier to save one planet. Easier doesn't mean better. Jake replied, "My father taught me that the right thing to do is often the hardest thing to do." Jake looked around the chamber at the 12 ancient beings. "You've spent millions of years maintaining order by making sure every species knows their place. But what if their place could be something better? What if instead of controlling them, you helped them grow?" The energy being Tisara pulsed brightly. "You would risk everything on the hope that different species can work together?" "It's not hope," Jake said. "It's experience. On Earth, we have hundreds of different cultures, languages, and ways of thinking. We've learned that our differences make us stronger, not weaker. But what if you're wrong?" Asked the crystal being. "What if the cooperation fails? What if the evacuation doesn't work?" Jake smiled. "Then we'll try something else. That's what humans do. We keep trying until we find a solution that works." The council members exchanged glances in ways Jake couldn't understand. Some seemed to be communicating through methods that had no human equivalent. Finally, Zexai spoke. "In 12 million years, no species has ever responded to this test the way you have." "Maybe," Jake said, "that's because no one ever asked them to." The silence that followed was the longest yet. Jake realized that everything that happened next would determine not just humanity's future, but the future of every species in the galaxy. The Council had expected humans to fail their test. Instead, humans had challenged the test itself. Now, the ancient beings had to decide what to do with a species that refused to accept that some problems couldn't be solved. Jake sat back down and waited. Whatever came next, he was ready for it. The council session continued, but Jake could feel that something had changed. The 12 ancient beings were no longer just testing humanity. They were questioning themselves. Elder Mordon spoke for the first time since Jake had arrived. He was the oldest member of the council, a being so ancient that he remembered when the galaxy was young. His form was hard to see clearly, like looking at something through deep water. "Human," Mordon said, his voice like the whisper of time itself. "You have given us much to consider. But there are things you do not understand about the galaxy." Jake listened carefully. He sensed that Mordon was about to reveal something important. "Millions of years ago," Mordon continued, "the galaxy was chaos. Species fought constantly for resources and territory. Entire civilizations were destroyed in wars that lasted for centuries. The suffering was beyond measure." The other council members remained silent as the ancient being spoke. "We formed the council to end this chaos," Mordon said. "We established territories for each species. We regulated trade and resource distribution. We prevented contact between species that might lead to conflict." "You created order," Jake said. "Yes," Mordon replied. "We created order. And for millions of years, there has been peace." Jake felt like he was beginning to understand. But peace isn't the same as progress. "Progress," said the crystal being, "leads to conflict. New technology creates new weapons. New discoveries lead to new competitions. New ideas challenge established order." "So you stopped progress," Kevin said from behind Jake. The lightning being flickered. "We managed progress. We allowed each species to develop within safe limits. We prevented dangerous innovations." Jake looked around the chamber. "What you're describing isn't governance. It's control." "It is stability," Zexai said. "Each species knows their role. Each species accepts their limitations. Each species remains in their assigned territory." "Until humanity arrived," Amy said. Quietly, the council members shifted in their seats. Jake realized they had reached the heart of the matter. "Human traders," said the crystal being, "form alliances across species lines. This breaks our territorial agreements. Human explorers, added the lightning being, discover new worlds and share the coordinates freely. This disrupts our resource allocation. Human engineers, said another council member, solve problems that have been considered impossible for centuries. This threatens our technological controls. Jake finally understood. You didn't invite us here to join you. You invited us here to stop us. Your species, HFY said, represents the greatest threat to galactic stability in millions of years. Not because we're violent, Jake said. Because we're cooperative. Because you refuse to accept limitations, Mordon said. Because you see possibilities where others see impossibilities. The energy being Tisara pulsed with what might have been sadness. The galaxy has been stagnant for so long that we had forgotten what growth looks like. Jake stood up and walked to the center of the chamber. So what's your plan? How do you intend to stop us? We will offer you a choice, HFY said. A reasonable choice. You can accept a sector of space to govern as you see fit. You will have complete autonomy within your territory. But, added the crystal being, you will be forbidden from expanding beyond that territory. Your contact with other species will be limited to approved channels. Your technology will be regulated, said the lightning being. Your exploration will be restricted to designated areas. And your ideas, said another council member, will be contained to prevent them from spreading to other species. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. You're offering us a prison. We are offering you autonomy, HFY said. More than any species has ever been given. No, Jake said. You're offering us a cage with better decorations. He turned to face each council member in turn. You're afraid. You've spent millions of years building a system that keeps everything exactly the same. And now you've encountered a species that changes everything it touches. Change leads to chaos, Mordon said. We have seen this pattern before. But have you seen our pattern? Jake asked. Have you actually studied what happens when humans encounter other species? Amy activated her tablet again. The holographic display showed human colonies and trade routes throughout their small sector of the galaxy. Every species we've met has become more prosperous, Amy said. Trade has increased. Technology has improved. Cooperation has replaced competition. The Zephyrians, Kevin added, have established 3 new colonies since they began trading with humans. The Regellians have developed new mining techniques. The Centauri have improved their agricultural systems. All of this happened because humans shared their knowledge freely, Jake said. Because we offered partnership instead of domination. But what about the conflicts? Asked the crystal being. Surely there have been disagreements, territorial disputes, resource competitions. There have been problems, Jake admitted. But we've solved them through negotiation and compromise. We've learned that most conflicts happen because people don't understand each other. And the few that can't be solved through talking? Asked the lightning being. We solve them by finding better solutions, Jake replied. Solutions that benefit everyone involved. The council members exchanged those strange communications again. Jake could feel them evaluating everything he had said. You speak of benefits, HFY said finally. But what about the costs? What about the risks? Everything worthwhile involves risk, Jake said. The question is whether the risk is worth the potential reward. And do you believe the reward is worth the risk of galactic chaos? Asked Morden. I believe, Jake said, that the risk of never trying is greater than the risk of trying and failing. He walked closer to the ancient being. You've prevented chaos by preventing change. But you've also prevented growth, discovery, and the possibility of something better. The galaxy is stable, protested the crystal being. The galaxy is stagnant, Jake replied. When was the last time a council member explored a new world? When was the last time you discovered something that changed how you Think about the universe. The silence that followed was different from the others. It was the silence of beings who had forgotten what it felt like to wonder about the unknown. Human, Tessara said finally, what you propose is dangerous. If we allowed your species to continue unrestricted, if we permitted your ideas to spread to other species, the entire structure of galactic civilization could collapse. Or, Jake said, it could transform into something better than any of us have imagined. He looked around the chamber one more time. You have a choice to make. You can try to contain us, to force us into the same pattern as every other species. Or you can trust us to help you build something new. And if we choose containment? Asked ZEX single quotes HAI. Jake smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Then you'll discover that humans are very good at escaping from cages. The council members were quiet for a long moment. Then alarms began to sound throughout the station. What is that? Amy asked. Zexai's form shifted with what might have been surprise. We are receiving communication requests from species throughout the galaxy. They are asking about humanity. How many requests? Jake asked. Hundreds, replied the crystal being. Species that have not contacted the council in thousands of years are asking to meet with your people. Kevin checked his translation device. Captain, I'm getting messages in languages I don't recognize. They're requesting trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and technology sharing. Jake realized what was happening. Word has spread. The galaxy knows that someone challenged the council and lived to tell about it. This is exactly what we feared, Mordan said. Your ideas are already spreading. Yes, Jake said. They are. The question is what you're going to do about it. The alarms continued to sound as more and more species reached out to the council station. The old order was beginning to crack, and everyone in the galaxy could feel it. Jake looked at the 12. Ancient beings who had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. Their perfect system was coming apart, and they had to decide whether to fight the change or embrace it. Choose quickly, Jake said, because change is coming whether you want it or not. The alarms continued to sound throughout the council station. Jake could see the panic in the ancient beings' communications. Their perfect system was unraveling, and they didn't know how to stop it. Silence the alarms, Elder Mordan commanded. Noise stopped, but the tension in the chamber remained. Jake could feel the weight of millions of years of galactic history pressing down on this moment. Human, Zexai said, you have forced us to reveal our true purpose. Now we must be direct. Your species will accept our terms of containment, or we will use force to ensure compliance. Jake stood up slowly. Amy and Kevin moved closer to him, ready to support whatever decision he made. With respect, Council Prime, Jake said, I think you've misunderstood something important about humanity. He walked to the center of the chamber, where the holographic displays still showed the results of humanity's influence on the galaxy. When humans first looked up at the stars, Jake continued, we didn't see territory to conquer or resources to exploit. We saw possibilities. We saw homes for dreams we hadn't even dared to dream yet. The council members listened, but Jake could sense their impatience. They wanted an answer to their ultimatum. You're right that we're disruptive, Jake said. Every species we've met has told us that what we're trying to do is impossible, and every time we've proven them wrong. He gestured to the displays around the chamber. Not through force, but through cooperation. Not by taking what we want, but by helping others get what they need. Pretty words, said the crystal being, but you must choose. Accept our terms or face the consequences. Jake smiled. It was the same smile his father had worn when someone told him a machine couldn't be fixed. You offer us a cage decorated with the illusion of honor, Jake said. But you've forgotten something important about humans. We've spent our entire history breaking out of cages. The lightning being flickered with what might have been anger. You cannot fight the entire galaxy. We don't plan to fight anyone, Jake replied. We plan to offer them a choice. What choice? Asked Tessara. The choice to be more than what they've always been, Jake said. The choice to grow, to explore, to discover what's possible when different species work together. The council members were becoming agitated. Jake could see that they were preparing to take action. You are one species, Zexai said. We are 12 of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Your defiance is meaningless, is it? Jake asked. He nodded. To Amy, who activated her communication device. Suddenly, the chamber filled with voices. Dozens of alien languages spoke at once, but the translation systems made their meaning clear. This is Captain Valinara of the Zephyrian Trade Fleet. We stand with humanity. Commander Rigel of the Centauri Mining Guild. We support the human. Proposal for galactic cooperation. Elder Ishtai of the Outer Rim Colonies. We reject the Council's authority to limit our interactions with other species. More voices joined in. Species that Jake had never heard of were declaring their support for humanity's vision of the galaxy. Amy smiled as she counted the communications. Captain, we're receiving support from over 200 species. Many of them are offering ships and resources for the evacuation plan. The council members were stunned into silence. In millions of years, no one had challenged their authority. Now, in the space of minutes, their control is crumbling. How is this possible? Asked the crystal being. Kevin looked up from his translation device. Sir, it seems that news of our meeting spread through unofficial channels. Many species have been waiting for someone to challenge the Council's restrictions. Waiting? Morden asked. The galaxy has been talking, Council Elder, Jake said. Species have been sharing information, forming relationships, discovering common interests. Your control system has been breaking down for years. We just gave them permission to admit it. Tessara pulsed with what Jake now recognized as excitement. The younger species especially have been restless. They want to explore, to grow, to achieve more than their assigned roles. This is chaos, Zexai said. This is exactly what we sought to prevent. No, Jake replied. This is change. And change can be scary, but it can also be wonderful. He walked closer to the Council Prime. You've spent millions of years preventing wars by preventing contact. But what if there was a better way? What if different species could work together, instead of being kept apart? Impossible, said the lightning being. Different species have different needs, different values, different ways of thinking. Exactly, Jake said. And those differences can be strengths instead of weaknesses. Amy stepped forward. Council members, we'd like to propose something. Instead of trying to contain humanity, why not work with us? Help us coordinate the evacuation plan. See for yourselves what's possible when the galaxy cooperates. And if it fails, ask the crystal being. Then we'll learn from the failure. And try something else, Jake said. That's what humans do. We keep trying until we find a solution that works. The chamber fell quiet as the council members considered this. Jake could sense their internal struggle. They had maintained order for so long that they had forgotten how to embrace change. There is another consideration, Mordaunt said finally. If we attempt to contain humanity by force, we will prove to the galaxy that our rule is based on fear rather than wisdom. But if we allow this chaos to continue, Zexai said, we risk losing all control. Maybe, Jake said gently. It's time to stop controlling and start leading. Tessara pulsed brightly. The human speaks wisdom. I have watched the galaxy stagnate for millions of years. Perhaps it is time to allow growth again. Other council members began to speak. Some supported the idea of cooperation. Others argued for maintaining the old ways. The debate continued. For hours. Finally, Elder Mordun raised a form that might have been a hand. The chamber fell silent. "I am the oldest being in this chamber," he said. "I have seen the galaxy at its worst and at its most peaceful. I have spent millions of years believing that order was more important than progress." He paused, and Jake held his breath. "But perhaps," Mordun continued, "I have been wrong. Perhaps it is time to trust in possibility rather than fear change." The ancient being turned toward Jake. "Human representative, the Council accepts your proposal. We will work with you to coordinate the evacuation. We will observe how the galaxy responds to cooperation instead of control." Jake felt relief wash over him. "Thank you, Council Elder." But Morden added, "If this experiment fails, if cooperation leads to conflict and chaos, we will be forced to return to the old ways." "Understood," Jake said. "But I don't think you'll need to worry about that." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Communication requests poured in from across the galaxy. Species that had never talked to each other began forming rescue fleets. Technology was shared freely as civilizations worked together to solve. The evacuation problem got Jake stood at the observation deck of the Council station, watching ships arrive from every corner of the galaxy. Each ship represented a species that had chosen cooperation over isolation. Amy joined him at the window. "Sir, I've never seen anything like this. The coordination is incredible. It's what happens when people work together toward a common goal." Jake said. Kevin appeared with another update. "Captain, the evacuation plan is ahead of schedule. With this many ships and resources, we'll be able to save everyone with time to spare." Jake smiled. "And the Council?" "They're amazed," Kevin said. "Tissara told me that they've learned more about the galaxy in the last few days than they had in the previous 1,000 years. 6 months later, Jake stood on the bridge of the new Horizon as it approached Earth. The evacuation had been a complete success. All 5 planets had been saved, and their populations were thriving in their new homes. More importantly, the galaxy had discovered something it had forgotten: the joy of working together toward impossible goals. Incoming message from Earth. Amy reported. Jake activated the communication system. The President's voice filled the bridge. "Captain Morrison, on behalf of all humanity, congratulations on a mission well accomplished. How does it feel to have changed the galaxy?" Jake looked out at the stars, where ships from hundreds of species traveled freely between worlds, sharing knowledge and building friendships. "Mr. President," Jake said, "it feels like we're just getting started." The new horizon entered Earth's solar system, but Jake knew that humanity's real journey was just beginning. They had shown the galaxy that impossible was just another word for something that hadn't been tried yet, and there were still so many things that hadn't been tried yet. Behind them, the galaxy buzzed with new activity. Species that had been isolated for millions of years were meeting for the first time. New technologies were being developed through cooperation. New worlds were being explored by mixed crews of different species. The Council still existed, but their role had changed. Instead of controlling the galaxy, they were helping to coordinate it. Instead of preventing change, they were guiding it. And in a small conference room on the Council station, plans were being made for the first interspecies cooperation summit. It would be held on Mars, at humanity's suggestion, because Earth's moon was too small, and Earth itself was too overwhelming for many species.